hysteria or get people stirred up, clout chasing to try to make people mad or anything like that. This is just kind of a fun time. Like I read a comment yesterday. Nice guy on Twitter said that he's talking about myself. I do kind of a drama-free version of college football talk. That's a great compliment to me. I hope that we do drama-free around here. I really do. And hopefully we enjoy that. Senior Dog 54 says, when does Georgia play Texas A&M again? That's actually a really good question. I don't know that. Other people seem to be way better at knowing about rotational stuff than I do. I think that obviously this year Georgia's rotational game is Mississippi State on the road. Next year, I think it's Ole Miss at home. And I'm talking about next year being 2023. The year after that, I believe it's Ole Miss at home. There are a lot of people who are way better at knowing those like rotational games than I am. But obviously that's one of the things. Now, that's also a big change coming to the SEC too. Is that this thing where, hey, Georgia didn't play Texas A&M at all in the SEC until 2019 and not scheduled to go to College Station for a whole bunch of years in the future as well. Like, that's one of the things that people seem to really want to change. And, we talk a lot about changes coming to college football, and in some of these cases, changes we're resistant to. In other cases, changes that we kind of more openly embrace. Like, one of the things that I do get the sense that the majority of people just want is a little bit more of a rotation in the SEC. So whatever the current on-the-books model is for who you play when, I'm getting the sense that's about to be really just torn to pieces, really torn to pieces, because you can't go from a 14-team league to a 16-team league, which the SEC is about to do, keep the same East-West scheduling model in place. If you do that, you're never playing anybody, because that's two more teams that kind of get factored into this, and you'd go a long time without playing a lot of teams in the league. So I do think whether it's eliminating divisions entirely, going to pods, or something like that, you're going to see a situation where you play a small handful of teams every single year. In Georgia's case, that's probably certainly Florida, certainly Auburn, and who knows who the next one would be. But Florida and Auburn, the most likely teams. Maybe not even Auburn. In fairness, Florida's the team that we know Georgia will play every year. There's a very good chance that Georgia doesn't even play Auburn every year anymore, even though they have as the Deep South's oldest rivalry. That might not happen in the future, but changing the schedule so that you can play Texas A&M more frequently or Oklahoma more frequently once they are in the league, or whoever else, one of those things there. Are we on the other platforms now? Excuse me. So Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, good morning to you, and thanks for being here on DawgNation Daily, presented by Merriweather and Tharp. We'll get going here in a moment. Fun show coming up. Let me take a couple more comments before we get there. Doghouse Lawn Care checks in to say good morning, dogs. Great to see that. Let's see what else folks are saying in the comments section here. Excuse me. Randy Hall mentioning the new special teams analyst coming over from Duke. We'll talk about that in the regular show today. Kirk Benedict seems like a pretty good hire for UGA. Jimbo's lawyer says A&M is arranging to avoid UGA for the next few years. That could very well be the case. My guess is our Jimbo's lawyer is going to be pretty busy in the years to come, if you get my drift. Randy Hall also said that Jeff said last night that there was another commitment coming in 30 days. Well, there you go. That's exciting to think about. Brian Whitehead checks in to say good morning. Good morning to you there as well. Senior Dog 54 says, I've heard that A&M is an unbelievable environment. I guess I have a little bit of a, to be honest with you, like some of the stuff related to Kyle Field, I think is a little bit overrated. I mean, in fact, you've kind of heard this said before that, okay, so they have the 12th man, they have Yale practice, all those kinds of things. But not to get too deep in the weeds, there is a school of thought out there that the way they yell, the kind of like continual dull roar, actually just kind of blends into the background after a while, and it's actually not as loud for home games as it should be. Now, for the Alabama game, it probably was. For other games, maybe that's been the case. And like kind of for a while, prior to beating Alabama in College Station a year ago, Texas A&M had a little bit of a reputation for being the kind of team that had a hard time winning games at home. Like some of the better moments for A&M prior to this year's win against Alabama, some of the better moments for A&M in the SEC had actually come on the road. Certainly 2012 at Alabama is probably the chief example of that. But they're at College Station. A&M's actually probably lost more games than you think they probably should. Dennis Pilardi says that Coach Smart's not relaxing. That's exactly right. We are in kind of a relaxed portion of the year, but I'm not quite so sure Kirby Smart ever relaxes. Now, maybe at some point in time you should, but for now, that energy is serving UGA well. T. Stoner asked, what high school did I go to? Johnson High School in South Hall County, Georgia. I am a Johnson alumnus. West Georgia Dog fan says, when I went to University of West Georgia from 96 to 2000, we had a running back that was paired up with someone that he could learn on, tutor support if needed. Yeah, I mean, and look, you have a lot of that kind of stuff now. I mean, academic support. I mean, honestly, the average student also has more, probably academic resources to take advantage of than they used to. Colleges, I think, have, over the course of time, I mean, gosh knows they're going to be so expensive, they're going to have to serve people well. So I think colleges just in general have gotten better at serving their students, I think anyway. Maybe some of you who are younger may disagree with that, but it seems like that's kind of the case. And obviously around the athletics world, there are a couple of different ways to recruit. There's the way that you recruit the player. Here's how much fun you're going to have. There's a way to recruit the parents, which is, hey, here's how well taken care of your son's going to be, both spiritually, emotionally, and academically. And so all that academic infrastructure, I think, serves the parents pretty well. They are especially mama. She's a big, stakeholder in that ultimate decision of where the son goes, and she sees all that academic infrastructure in place. That really works well on her. And so there's kind of an incentive for programs to have a lot of that in place. All right, pretty good stuff there. Larry Goldberg says Johnson. You don't have to call it Johnson. It is Johnson. That's the name of the school. Mike, is it Buse or Bice? Mike Bice checks in to say Johnson alumnus also. That's really cool there as well. That's awesome. I've met a few Johnson alumni through what we're doing around here, so that's kind of a cool thing. Very, very proud night. Very proud night. So kind of nice to be able to see. All right, so we'll get more of your comments, a part of our 1st and 15, obviously, every single day, but R.S. Andrews cooldown when we're done today. For now, I want to get ready to get into the show. As one of our commenters mentioned, you've got new special teams ace that's now been hired as a sports staffer. We'll address that. Kind of a cool shout out from the Los Angeles Rams to UGA with all the connections there as the Rams get ready for the Super Bowl, and Georgia fans in a lot of ways get ready to cheer for LA there. No disrespect to Trey Hill, but there's a little more of a Georgia flavor on the Rams side, especially with the quarterback Matthew Stafford. I get the impression a lot of UGA fans are cheering for LA come Sunday, so we'll do a little bit on that. Terence Edwards comes by. Always great to have him as a part of the program. One word that Kirby Smart used as a deciding factor in a major recruit in the 2022 class. We're going to zero in on the importance of that and what another recruit in the 2023 class is also saying about that. But to begin with, we now know when spring practice begins. We now know when G-Day is going to occur. And in between those dates, we also know what Georgia needs to get done on the practice field. Let's begin the show with that, if you don't mind. It's DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans, presented by Merriweather and Tharp. And it begins right now.
Today's episode of DawgNation Daily is brought to you by Merriweather and Tharp, your source for Georgia divorce. Find them online at theatlantadivorceteam.com.
Presented by DawgNation.com. This is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. Here's your host, Brandon Adams.
There has been plenty of speculation, internet chatter over the course of the last couple of weeks about what the spring dates would look like for Georgia. We now know officially what they are, and that kind of creates a nice little conversation starter for us today in terms of when spring practice begins, when it ends on G-Day, and how much fun is that going to be back in Sanford Stadium with the reigning national champions for that classic annual spring scrimmage. Let me give you the dates here officially so you can plan around all of this. Georgia good enough to share this yesterday, that it kicks off on March 15th, and we kind of knew that was going to be the date there on that, but it is now official. If you're watching on video, you see the red dot, or I should say blocks on the calendar. Those are all the practice days that'll occur, culminating in G-Day on April the 16th. Now, this is a little bit different than it has been, because I believe that this G-Day on Saturday, April 16th is actually the day before Easter. That's mostly what Georgia's been trying to avoid in the Smart era. Now, they're definitely avoiding the Saturday of the Masters. They're doing that for sure, but they've also been trying to avoid that Saturday before Easter. Honestly, I never really knew that the day before Easter was a thing, but apparently it is for a lot of folks traveling or whatever else. So they've been trying to avoid that day before Easter. This year, they're not able to do that, though, I guess, for TV or whatever reason. So G-Day is going to be on April the 16th. And what that leads us to is, okay, that actually doesn't feel so far away. It's only a little bit more than a month from now. Georgia's going to be back to work officially. We'll be getting practice reports. We'll see some of this. We'll all be in Sanford Stadium for G-Day. That we're actually not that far away from one of those kind of official moments of starting the 2020, not just 2022 calendar year, but the 2022 season there as well. And I think one of the things that we know is there is a lot of work for Georgia to do to be ready to go out and defend the national championship. That's going to put a big old sign on its back, big target, big bullseye on the back of the Georgia Bulldogs, because it is the reigning national champion, and a lot of work to do to be ready for that title defense that's on its way, and all those would-be challengers who kind of want to take Georgia down a peg on all of this. And I don't know that this entire idea of what we need to learn about Georgia before G-Day, what Georgia needs to get done on the practice field and in the weight room and all that kind of stuff right now, but on the practice field before G-Day, I don't know that could have been better articulated by anything other than what Kirby Smart said, if you want to go back to National Signing Day a couple of Wednesdays ago. And the issue here is not so much the specific words that Smart uses, but it's really more about the feeling that he conjures up. And you got to imagine, if you're a coach, I mean, imagine the scenario where you work so hard and you try to get a team together, and some of you are teachers, and I think if you've been a teacher, you understand this too. It's like, okay, you start a year and you got these kids and they're all over the place, kind of like herding cats. And then over the course of the year, you kind of finally get them doing what you want them to do. You kind of finally have them trained the way that you want them to be, and then you blink your eyes. Now it's time to let them say goodbye, and they go on to be in somebody else's class at that point in time, and all of a sudden you got to start all over again. There's a certain sense of just when things get going. For a lot of you who coach like maybe youth league sports, you see the same thing. It's like it's so hard to teach a young person how to play a sport, and then you finally feel like you got them taught. Now the season's over. Now they're going on somebody else's team, and you got somebody else coming up the year after that who's kind of just as untrained as they were, before. Like in life, we experience a lot of this kind of thing. Apparently, head coaches of college football programs that get paid millions of dollars sort of experience the same thing, where you work so hard to get a team ready. Now the season's over. Now you got to start from scratch over the brand new team, and all of a sudden there's a lot of faces around here you don't even really recognize. Smart kind of gave voice to that a little bit last Wednesday. I thought this was kind of at least funny in terms of the fact that we've all been there in some form or fashion in life before. This is Smart talking about the challenge of starting over. Good stuff from Kirby.
Look at our current roster here and the guys we have training, that we have some holes. I mean, there's, every year I always say it, you go in that team meeting, the meeting after you're through with your season, regardless of how your season ended, you're looking around going, where's everybody at? Uniquely in this case, there's 19 guys in the back of the room that are filling a lot of big holes in the front of the room. And that doesn't happen overnight.
So I think that's really funny. And Smart also, the 19 guys he's referencing there are all the early enrollees from the 2022 class, will help fill in some of those gaps. But, I mean, that's a very human moment, I think, from Smart of, hey, where'd everybody go? Where's Nakobe Dean? Isn't he supposed to be here right now? Where's Devontae Wyatt? Where's Jordan Davis? Where's Trayvon Walker? Are they late? Where are all those guys? No, they're no longer on this team. They are now on the Chicago Bears or the LA Rams or the LA Chargers or somebody like that. They are no longer on this team anymore. So that's just kind of the challenge that you deal with there. And Smart, I think, in that statement conjures up the feeling pretty well. But if you want some facts and figures to go along with what Smart says when he looks around and says, hey, these are new faces and new places here with this Georgia team, the numbers back that up there as well. Connor Riley wrote about this at DawgNation.com earlier this week. Bill Conley's an analytics expert for ESPN, and he ranks every year. And this is always one of the pieces that I enjoy, a part of the typical preseason calendar of, as we start really turning the page from the last season to the new season, one of the things we look at is returning production. And the notion of returning production is a little bit of an evolution of an idea. You may remember years ago we talked a lot about returning starters. How many returning starters does this team have or that team have? But honestly, the notion of a returning starter is a little bit of a misnomer, or maybe it's a misapplied idea, because in a place like Georgia, it's rotating a lot of guys. And so the definition of what a starter is at a place like Georgia at some positions is not always easy to determine, because Georgia's playing so many guys. Plus, there are some teams that are just deeper and better than others. And so if you're a returning starter on a bad team, are you even a good player? We don't really know that. So what a lot of the stat-minded guys have done in recent years is say, instead of just counting returning starters, let's measure returning production. Let's look at the stats that you produced on offense and defense a year ago, and let's talk about the percentage of those stats that you're bringing back in terms of the players that produced them for the next year, and that becomes maybe a little bit more accurate reading of what you really have coming back than just returning starters. And from that standpoint, we mentioned a moment ago, no more Devontae Wyatt, no more Trayvon Walker, no more Darian Kendrick, no more Jordan Davis, no more Nakobe Dean, all those guys gone. And as you would imagine, that's a huge reflection on the lack of returning production. Let's just keep it to defense here for a moment. That's a huge reflection on the lack of returning production for the Georgia defense here in 2022. In fact, Connor Riley gave us the number from Bill Conley that Georgia only returns 44% of its defensive production. That means total tackles, tackles for loss, sacks, passes broken up, of the kinds of stats that defenses produce, the players that produce them, Georgia only brings back 44% of that here for 2022. That's 122nd out of 130 teams in the country. So on the basis of this stat from Bill Conley, ESPN.com, also written about at DawgNation.com, Georgia is literally one of the most, or I should say one of the least experienced defenses in the entire country. And Smart says every year it kind of feels that way. You look around the meeting room and it sort of feels like there's all these new people here, or all these people that you've depended on who are no longer here, and that's kind of a shock to the system when you first see it. The numbers kind of back that up. So that's really what spring practice is going to be about for Georgia. It's about figuring out who does step into all of this, who does step into these new roles. And that's where I kind of want to park here for a moment, because we can't really answer all those questions right now. We can certainly speculate with reasonable certainty about, hey, this guy's going to play a lot more and this guy's going to be really good. Watch out for this guy. We can do some of that, and we'll get some of it right, and that's one of the fun things that we do enjoy doing from time to time. But what I want to do instead is I want to talk about the process by which Georgia goes through in all of this. And this is one of those things where I mentioned a moment ago that Georgia plays a lot of guys, and sometimes if you're one of the guys that feels like you should be playing all the time and you're sharing playing time, that can be a little frustrating. But if you're another guy and you're hoping for that chance to just show coaches what you can do, the fact that Georgia does rotate a lot, the fact that Georgia does seemingly consider all options, especially this time of year, I think that's one of the things that speaks pretty well of the program, and I think that's one of the things that helps keep players in the program. Because we know right now the transfer portal never really closes, and certainly post-spring practice for a lot of programs, there's going to be that turnstile that's spinning again, and people are going to be exiting whatever program they happen to be in. But this is one of those things where Georgia kind of seems to excel at least a little bit, where all options kind of get considered. And one of the things that caused me to think about that a little bit was I saw where Dan Lanning was being interviewed by one of the local reporters up there in Eugene, Oregon, about what he learned from coaches he used to work with. Obviously, one of those being Kirby Smart, Mel Tucker, the guy that was defense coordinator at Georgia that Lanning also worked under, and spending some time around Nick Saban, things like that. And like one of the things that Lanning said in this interview was, hey, all those guys, the Kirby Smarts, the Mel Tuckers, guys like that, they're all what he called lifelong learners. And he went on to say that they're also kind of willing to consider every option in any kind of challenging situation, like maybe the idea of having to figure out who is going to step up and provide some defensive production in 2022, given the fact that so many of the guys who contributed to that in 2021 are no longer here. And in fact, let me show you this quote from Dan Lanning on this topic a little bit more, and keep this in light of the challenge awaiting Georgia this spring, figuring out who's going to step up on the defensive side of the ball. Lanning says, at Georgia, we spent a lot of time talking about the scenarios that could come during the game. Sometimes they happen. Sometimes they don't. But I thought those guys, Coach Saban, Coach Smart, Coach Norvell, Coach Tucker, these are guys that Lanning's worked with in the past, they all did a good job of seeing the big picture and not being surprised. Isn't that interesting from Dan Lanning? The interview comes via 24/7 Sports, that they just consider every option, every player. Hey, maybe we need to play a former walk-on like Dan Jackson. Maybe we need to play a former three-star like Adonai Mitchell at wide receiver. Maybe we need to do this. Maybe we need to do that. Like every option is considered. Think about William Poole, a guy from the 2017 class who at Georgia waited a long time to get his shot, but near the end of the season got that shot. I think most people would say he really played pretty well for you in a national championship game. All options get considered, and all of that starts during spring practice. So how does Georgia begin filling all these needs and replacing all these departed stars? It starts with looking at every available option during spring practice and giving everybody a chance to make sure they feel like they're a part of the process and they have a chance to earn big-time playing time and to one day be a guy that's revered like the guys that are were here in 2021 and are no longer here. And in fact, let me echo this point even more, if you don't mind, because if you read the full interview that Lanning gave, so much of what Lanning says there sounds so similar to other things we've heard other coaches say in the past about working with Kirby Smart. That theme of Every option is going to be considered. Every scenario is going to be accounted for. Every possible thing that could happen is going to be looked at, and the entirety of the roster is going to get their chance to show what they're all about, or the entirety of the roster is going to get considered for how they could help contribute to this football team. Because what Lanning said there to 24/7 Sports is actually pretty similar to what Sam Pittman, now Arkansas head coach, said when he was on, the Pardon My Take, the Barstool Show, PFT commenter, and Big Cat. They were talking to him about working for Kirby Smart, and what Pittman said to PMT, very similar to what Lanning said there in the 24/7 Sports interview. So let me give you just kind of a quick reminder of that.
I read that you have 6 centers on your team this year. Is that still true? You still got 6 of them?
Still have 6. There's 2 people that handle that ball every snap, and that's the center and the quarterback. On Saturday mornings, we have our meetings, and I know Cody gets mad at me, but I'll go, okay, what happens if he goes down? Okay, what happened? We'll get to the 5th center, 6th center, the 5th left tackle. And to be honest with you, Kirby Smart used to do that to me when I was coaching over at Georgia, too, and I was going, damn, he thinks we're going to get to the 100th left tackle. But to be honest with you, last week, we got hurt. We got beat up, and one kid played 3 different positions.
That's really interesting, right? Both in terms of the descriptive detail that Pittman goes into, but also the overlap with what Dan Lanning said there, too, that every option's considered. So let's finish it this way. How does Georgia replace all that it lost a year ago? Literally among the least experienced defenses in the country returning for 2022? How do they fill those gaps? How do they fill those holes? Well, to listen to Sam Pittman from PMT or to listen to Dan Lanning from 24/7 Sports, the answer would appear to be they will, in painstaking detail, look at every possible player in this roster to see what they all bring to the table. Strengths, opportunities to contribute, chances to become a bigger player on the field than maybe even their recruiting profile would have suggested. That you get the impression that this is where the foundation gets laid for a program like Georgia to have the success that it's enjoyed. That on the practice field, everybody gets to feel like they have a chance. Everybody gets to feel like they could make a name for themselves. Nobody's too buried on the depth chart or too anonymous based on their recruiting profile to have a chance to emerge as a big-time name. And we could cite countless examples of players who've proven that to be true. That's what's fun about spring practice. I love the fact that it's almost here, and I cannot wait to see who emerges with a big chance with available playing time on down the line. I'm Brandon Adams, and this is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans, presented by Merriweather and Tharp. Great to have you with us, no matter how you get to us. 9:45, 1st and 15, DawgNation.com, DawgNation app. 10 a.m. after that on video, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, radio at noon on Athens Sports Radio 960 The Ref, podcast form, wherever you find them, all the various podcast players. Happy to have you there, including posting the show at the world-famous DawgNation.com. And, of course, all of this would not be possible without our friends at Merriweather and Tharp, your source for Georgia divorce. I talked a moment ago about just how dedicated and devoted Kirby Smart, his coaching staff are to finding all the available options to help fill in some gaps with some big names no longer in this Georgia defense. That's the same kind of determination that Merriweather and Tharp shows for their area of expertise, which is the divorce process. And that's not a very comfortable topic sometimes. It's almost one of those things where it makes me a little nervous to even mention it to you because, let's face it, there's a lot of emotional weight that's connected to that word, that idea of divorce. But let's face it, it's also a fact of life. It's the kind of thing that for some people, they are going to have to deal with that. So if you find yourself in that reality, then put somebody beside you, with you, to walk alongside you and to advise you, to educate you about the process. That's what Merriweather and Tharp can do for you. Go to theatlantadivorceteam.com. They're your source for Georgia divorce, and when you check out the website, you'll find out why. Theatlantadivorceteam.com. You can set up an initial consultation with one of their attorneys. Tell them your story. They want to listen to your story because sometimes it's just kind of nice to have somebody listen to you. And then after that, they want to explain what can happen when you hire them to do great things for you and to set you up for a much happier next season of your life. So trust my friends at the Atlanta Divorce Team. I do truly consider Merriweather and Tharp my friends, and I think you'll find the same thing to be true there as well. TheAtlantaDivorceTeam.com. That's TheAtlantaDivorceTeam.com for Merriweather and Tharp, your source for Georgia divorce. All right, we're going to get Terence Edwards coming up in a little bit here as part of a Marlowe's Tavern Insider Update. Looking forward to doing that. Before we do that, though, let me spend just a couple of minutes on a recruiting topic for a moment as we go around the doghouse. So the other day, Kirby Smart was asked about the recruitment of Christian Miller. And I believe that Miller is a very good-looking defensive line prospect. He made his announcement on the February National Signing Day, got a lot of attention for doing so. But whenever Miller would have announced, he would have just been a big-time addition to the Georgia class at whatever point it came. Gets probably some extra attention because it was February, but that's probably well-deserved extra attention. And in the signing day press conference last Wednesday, Smart was asked, how is it that you win with a guy like Christian Miller? Now, I want you to listen to the word that Smart uses over and over here in terms of what worked with Miller. And I'm going to tell you after this why that's important. This is Smart describing how Georgia won with Christian Miller.
That's probably the number one determining factor on a high character, high quality kid. He comes from a tremendous family, and consistency. When I've lost kids that I feel like we should have gotten, probably the number one factor was, did we recruit them with the correct consistency? And when a kid honestly tells you he's going to another place because they recruited him more consistently, it makes it even more evident that you've got to be consistent. And I'll say this, we and Trey Scott and staff were extremely consistent with Christian Miller, and it paid off because the message didn't change, the consistency didn't change. He valued relationships, and he saw, December, what happens with guys moving all over the place. And when you've got a little bit of continuity, it certainly moves you up the board and the ladder in these kids' eyes. And we've been able to have that and sustain winning success. So you tend to attract people that have the same mindset you do. And I think Christian and Trey have a lot of the same mindset.
So hopefully you notice what I noticed there, the fact that Smart uses the word consistency over and over again, saying that was very important in the recruitment of Christian Miller. And Smart goes so far as to say, when you don't win these kind of recruiting battles, you look back and say, hey, were we as consistent as we needed to be? I think that's very interesting, especially in light of what another recruit is saying right now. Kamani McLean is a 5-star cornerback for the 2023 class, and it's largely thought, he's from Lakeland, Florida, it's largely thought that Georgia's a big factor in McLean's recruitment. And something that McLean said on social media the other day kind of gets my attention in light of the fact that Smart talks about how important consistency is in not just the recruitment of Christian Miller, but prospects of a similar caliber. You got to make sure you are sending a very consistent message to them. Georgia can do that with defensive line because Trey Scott's been here. Trey Scott's got a track record for success. But we've seen a scenario where, hey, Jamal Adai leaving after just 1 year on campus, after Charlton Warren left, after a brief tenure prior to that suddenly the Georgia defensive backs coaching situation doesn't seem quite so consistent. Is that a problem? And let me show what Kamani McLean says on Twitter here. Maybe you'll find it interesting. He says it's hard to make a decision, he means about his college choice, or at least we presume that he does, when it's different coaching staff every other day and you're having to rebuild another relationship with another person for a school you want to attend. Now, we don't know if McLean's talking about Georgia when he says that on Twitter or not, but we certainly know that it could be. And you may be thinking that I'm taking this conversation in the direction of, be careful, Georgia's going to have a problem with Kamani McLean. The honest truth is I don't know that that's going to be true at all. My guess is that Georgia probably remains in a pretty good situation with McLean and whoever ends up hiring as a replacement for Jamal Adai, assuming that is another defensive backs coach. My guess is that things are going to probably still work out fine there. It's actually not my purpose of bringing this up to say that Georgia's not recruiting McLean in a consistent fashion, because honestly we don't fully know all of that. I just think that stories like this, 5-star McLean, who's going to have his choice of going anywhere, Christian Miller, 4-star defensive lineman, have his choice of going anywhere. The fact that consistency is so important with them, I do think that should be a reminder of what truly matters to recruits, especially in a landscape right now where there seem to be certain people who want to usher in so much change to college football. And the change all seems to be centered around the notion of making the relationship that players have with their programs more transactional. Folks want to make them employees or take away the relationship that's existed before. But when you really listen to recruits talk, whether it's McLean on Twitter, whether it's Smart about Christian Miller in the audio clip from a moment ago, that these are recruits that don't really want, at least based on the circumstantial evidence we have, they don't want their relationship with their school or their coach to be transactional. That's not what they seem to want. They seem to want it to be relational. They don't want to be an employee of an organization. It seems like, not to be too corny here, but it almost seems like they'd rather be a member of a family here. I just think we got to keep that in mind, that there are a lot of people for lack of a better phrase, that all they really see from players is a vessel of economic potential, and that's not the way players see themselves. It's just not. They want to go to a place where they feel like there's going to be some day-to-day consistency. And the thing they're more worried about, at least it seems like, is the coach who recruited me going to be here? And are the promises that are made to me, are those promises going to be kept? Even for the big-time recruits like Christian Miller and Kermani McClain, that seems to be a little more important than some of the other things that are pushed on us all the time. Maybe just something to file away and to think about. That is Around the Doghouse. And, of course, it's great to have you on DawgNation Daily, presented by Merriweather and Tharp here today. Before we're done, we've got a little bit more recruiting stuff we're going to do in relationship to what one recruit's saying to another. If you're a UGA fan, I think you're going to really like this. We will do all of that coming up. But for now, on everything happening around UGA, and at least in some respect, what is it that recruits want, and how do stories like this kind of help educate us on that? Let's find out about it all here with Terence Edwards. It's a Marlowe's Tavern Insider Update. Great to have him and all of you with us here today.
From Athens and across the SEC or wherever the recruiting trail may lead, here's a DawgNation.com insider.
We'll say hello to Terence Edwards. Great voice, talking Georgia football, guy who knows it from the coaching side, guy who knows from the player side, and guy who's just a passionate follower of the sport all the way around. Good to have him here with us today. Marlowe's Tavern Insider Update. And Terence, if you don't mind, let me begin right there for a moment. We heard from a five-star cornerback a moment ago. We don't know if he's talking about Georgia, but we presume that he could be, when he says, hey, when coaches are changing a lot and you're having to reconsider something new about a school you might want to attend, that it makes them a little uncomfortable. Kirby Smart also describing how, consistency was an important factor in winning a battle for a guy like, say, Christian Miller, the four-star defensive lineman. Terence, you work with a lot of players who go on to play, college football. How much are they bothered by this time of year where position coaches, really at all programs, are just changing all the time? And, whether it be December it happens or now in February, and there could be some more of these for some programs still left to come. How tough is that for the recruits, and how bothered are they by all of that?
It's very tough. I think a lot of people think that players choose the school, but most of these players choose who's coaching at these schools. I think Kirby has done a great job of building a brand at Georgia, especially defensively. And it's hard when now we on our third cornerback coach in 3 years. That's just tough for any recruit to go in. I want to be coached by this cornerback coach or whatever positional coach, and he leaves after signing day. That's tough. That's tough for a kid when that guy sits up in mom's living room, eats mom's chicken and whatever they're cooking.
Sure. Now
that coach leaves after signing day. So just imagine how that feels to these kids. So they're gonna take a look at that. That's gonna be something that recruits, I think, look at now, because I haven't seen this much coaches movement. We talk about players movement, but I haven't seen this much coaches movement in a long time either. So I think that is something that these players are going to look at.
I think you're right about that. And Terence, one of the theories that I've expressed is that we hear a lot of talk about, maybe players should unionize. Maybe they should push to be declared as employees as opposed to what they have been before, which is student athletes. That I kind of have a theory. Now, I'm not a former player, nor am I as close to current players as you are. But I have a little bit of a theory that stuff like this is actually more important to the average player than the chance to go be a part of some, NFLPA style, players union thing where all of a sudden now I'm kind of an employee with all the benefits but also hassles that come with that, as opposed to what I can be, which is a young man growing up under the direction of some coaches that I want to put my faith and trust in, that the actual average player is a little bit more concerned with these kinds of things than he is with the idea of some sort of, National Labor Relations Board type issue. Would you agree with that?
I agree. I think, that's something that was never talked about when I played. Now trying to unionize and get somebody at seat at the table to kind of, give these players a little option. I think a lot of things with the transfer portal and the NIL deals have kind of came from those unionized type talks and try to give the players a little bit more, feel like they have a little bit more power. But it's you just got to think. I think a lot of adults that are fans kind of look at these kids and like, all you all want is an NIL deal with the most money. I think a lot of these kids are going to who they feel the most comfortable with. Yes, that may play a part with NIL deals and whatnot, but they still want to be coached by the best because most of these kids' dreams is playing in the NFL at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I would say to that, the players that I talk to, and let's go away from say a guy like a Reed Gilbert or Jermaine Burton, guys that you've who you've tutored, who they're going to have their options to go wherever they want to. These were big time recruits. They had every scholarship off there was. But for the average high school player, that's not what their story is. They're just trying to get the Division I scholarship, right? There's a lot more players who are trying to get that first offer than there are guys who are trying to sift through 100 offers. And the thing that concerns me is the more we move in the NIL world and transfer portal world and unionization world, it sort of seems like with every one of these changes, we end up seeing fewer guys sign out of high school, and the number of total scholarship athletes for the 2022 class seems to be lower than it was in 2021, and that number seems to be lower than it was in 2020. That I think there's a reasonable argument to be made for player freedom and a chance to make money off your name and your image and likeness. I certainly understand that, but this is a much broader conversation, I believe, than just that, because when you make a decision that maybe benefits a few, I think you have to look at the unintended consequences for how that impacts other people. And man, if we just have fewer scholarships being offered across the board and fewer high school guys getting a chance to play college football, I just don't know how that's better for the sport or the players that play the sport over the course of the long term.
I agree. I tweeted out the other day that Eric Gilbert, Jermaine Burton, this is not going to affect them. I tweeted out that it's the tier 3 and 4 kids that is going to be affected by this. And yes, we all know schools can tell a recruit that you have an offer, and I've never heard of this till recently, a committable or a non-committable offer. Well, if you offered me, shouldn't I be able to take this scholarship? And kids are posting, I have 30 to 40 offers, and then once that it's time to sign that letter of intent, there's no schools that are waiting. And I'm telling kids now, ask the school when they offer you, ask them, is it a committable offer? And if it is, you might as well commit on the spot, because if you wait until signing day or February signing day, that scholarship is not going to be there because we're waiting on a player out the transfer portal right now. And I understand it from a coach's perspective is why, I give a scholarship to an 18-year-old kid where I could go give it to a 20-year-old kid who's played college football already, who understands the life of a college athlete. But that's just going to hurt a lot of tier 3 and 4 kids that are looking to play college football on a high level, and they don't get that opportunity. And I also tweeted that, I can't remember what HBCU school it was, they signed 26 kids out of the portal for their signing class. No high schoolers. So it definitely has affected the game and the way recruiting has came about. But my focus is on those tier 3 and 4 kids. Yeah. Those, I'm not worried about the kids that's going to have the crazy offers and committable offers. It's the 3-4 kids that now is waiting on the likes of the Power 5 and it never comes, and they use that last 2 or 3 scholarships for porter kids.
No, that's exactly right. I'm glad that you said what you said. Let me transition to a different topic for a moment. I talked before you joined us about the big need that Georgia has this spring to find some new faces to fill in for some guys who are big-time stars a year ago, especially on defense. Georgia, one of the least experienced defenses in the country, returning for 2022 based on some of the metrics that are out there. And this is where I really believe that Smart's ability to kind of manage the full roster, Smart seems to give everybody kind of a fair shot here. You've had guys that have waited a long time for playing time that emerge over the course of the end of the last season, like a William Poole. You have former walk-ons that get their chance, like a Dan Jackson. It seems like that really nobody has any justifiable reason to feel like they're buried on the Georgia roster, that kind of everybody gets that chance. We've heard former coaches say, hey, Smart's always thinking about every possible contingency, every possible, way down deep on the depth chart, every possible contingency there. And if that really is true about Smart, that kind of attention to detail and that kind of knowledge and obsession over the full roster probably serves Georgia pretty well right now as it tries to find a bunch of guys to kind of fill in on defense after a whole bunch of major contributors from a year ago are no longer here. Is that fair?
It's very fair. I think for the defensive line standpoint, we rotate so much. Now it's just that second group, who was considered the second group, is now considered the starters. And that third group now is considered the second group. And they really have to focus and get better in this spring to really play like the second group played this year. It wasn't much of a drop-off. And I think that's the reason Kirby does it. I mean, he likes them to play fast. He likes bigger guys that can run. But I think he also do it so he can have a lot of guys that are maybe rotational, feel like, they're getting the proper playing times as being backups. And we rotate a lot. So a lot of guys is going to have to step up right now. I think this is the most important part of the season. Yes, we see the games on Saturday, but fans don't see what's going on right now. It's Coach St. Clair. It's time for him to be Kirby Smart. This is his season. This is the weight room, and this is where you build character. This is where you build leadership. And now these guys are going to have to step up and be that leader. And it doesn't start in the spring. It starts right now. I think this time of the season is the most important time of the season to build a team. And this is where character, integrity, all that comes into play in this season right now.
I think that's really well said. Before we're done, I got one more topic I want to address with you, and then I also want to celebrate what I think is some really good news for the Edwards family that I want to talk to you about in a moment, too. Before that, let me remind folks, this is our Marlowe's Tavern Insider Update. Terence Edwards, of course, our UGA football insider, but you can be a Marlowe's Tavern insider. And listen, that's really cool in and of itself because we love the chef-inspired food and the craft cocktails that you get at Marlowe's Tavern. We also love the chance to get the best offers that are available throughout the year when you become a Marlowe's Tavern Insider Club member. And in fact, you're going to get a big signing bonus just for signing on. You're going to get, how about this? When you go to marlowstavern.com and become a member of the Insiders Club, you're going to get $10 off, $30 at Marlowe's Tavern simply just for signing up. Then after that, just dine at Marlowe's Tavern. When you spend at least $15 in food and beverage, you're going to earn a qualified visit. Now, after you get 4 qualified visits, you're going to receive a complimentary entree that can be worth up to $20 on your next visit. So it's all kinds of savings like that where you just get great deals on great food. And you can also check this out at any of your local Marlowe's Taverns. You're going to get special offers for your birthday. By the way, I got a birthday coming up here too, so that's pretty cool. So marlowstavern.com, find out how you can become a member of the Insider Club and enjoy all the delicious desserts and the craft cocktails and the chef-inspired food, special menu items throughout the year. Just check that out at your local tavern, Marlowe's Tavern, for a lot more on that at marlowstavern.com. So, Terence, one of the topics that came up a little earlier this week is a concern that exists on the part of some, and this is, I think, totally fair. We've seen examples of this in the SEC where, hey, you win the national championship and all of a sudden maybe you lose your edge. All of a sudden you're maybe not what you were. That complacency does creep in, and you're a football player. You understand that you're always trying to prove something to somebody, but all of a sudden when you're the champ, you don't have quite as much to prove anymore. And so you got to try to find that new way to get that new level of motivation. How do you think UGA fights against that complacency here for this upcoming season?
I think it starts right now. Like I just said, it starts right now. It starts to let like that team is over with. This is not the 2021 team. This is the 2022 team. And how you going to leave your mark? The Jordan Davis of the world is not walking back through that door. And the Kobe Deans of the world is not walking back through that door. Now it's up to you to leave your legacy. So it's up to starting with the strength and conditioning staff to get these guys, recalibrated to, all right, that season is over with. We have to now focus on the 2022 season. Yes, we're dealing with kids, but I think Kirby do a great job in his staff of grounding these kids and keeping these kids understand that, they're not as good as they think they are, and they're not as bad as they think they are either. So I think this staff will do a great job. I think hiring a BMAC at receiver position coaches is going to pay off tremendous. I've already heard from some of the receivers the differences. Not either one is better than the other, just a different approach, and they're taking to him right now. So it's just up to, and the leadership of the team is got to be important. We keep talking about and keep harping on the leadership, and it takes those guys to really get these younger guys, these freshmen, these redshirt freshmen to understand what it takes to be a Georgia Bulldog, and it's up to everyone. It takes a collaborative effort to get these guys to really understand and buy into the 2022 season because the 2021 season is over.
Really good stuff, Terence. And let me mention this as we go out the door here. I know how much you love your alma mater, the University of Georgia, but I also know how much you really love your high school alma mater, Washington County. How nice is it to see your brother, who's obviously done a great job at Riverwood High School here in the Atlanta area? They were a very good team this year, going back home to Washington County to be head coach. What does that mean to you to see that from him?
Oh, it's great. It's a dream come true for my parents. My parents are still living in Washington County now. My dad and mother don't have to drive up to Atlanta to see their son coach, and now he's right there back where it started. He kind of started this whole dominance that we had at Washington County in his senior season. Coach Rick Tumblin's first season, they went 14-1 and lost in the state championship game to Mitchell Baker.
Mm-hmm.
So now he just got to go back into the town that made him and myself who we are as men, as people. Now he get to go back and serve his community. I'm so happy for him and his family, and especially for my family that's still in Washington County. And it's crazy that he's going to be coaching a lot of his classmates and
That's
people
great.
he went to high school with, coaching their kids. So it's exciting times, and everyone is excited about it. And I have to really give Joe Ingram his flowers for doing a great job of serving our community for the past 22 years. So now it's Robert's turn, and everyone seems to be in full support of him. And now I'm just waiting to see how he translates. I know what he's done in Greene County. I know what he's done for the Riverwood program, and I don't expect anything else from him but to do the same in Washington County.
And it's great to me because, listen, you played in the NFL. You played a long time in the CFL. You're a record-setting college player. Robert was a dadgum first-round pick. And yet there's that still bragging rights that comes from your high school career that seems to linger for so many of these guys, including you and your brother, for such a long time. And I love seeing this, whether it be, how maybe Mike Bobo feels about being from Thomasville, or, you can cite 1,000 examples of this, of, hey, where you came from, where you played in high school. I don't care what you do, college, NFL wise, there is still going to be a great locker room argument that's always going on about who was doing it better in high school, whether it be Middle Georgia or South Georgia or the Atlanta area, whatever else, that those bragging rights never die, no matter how good you go on to be. Folks are still bragging about those high school teams, right?
Oh, most definitely. I still talk about my teams. And Joe Burns is that played at Tech, really good friend of mine. We came out, and we always argue about his Coleman County Central team versus my Washington County team. So those arguments would never die. And I would put my teams up against any of the current teams, past teams. I think we hit, especially my senior year when we beat Reggie Brown in a state championship game. I just think that team with myself and Jesse Miller, another Washington County great, I just think we were just tougher, bigger, stronger, faster, mentally, physically tougher than everyone else. And I continue to say that now. And I've been out of high school for 25 years. So now my brother get opportunity to be back in that locker room where he started, where it all started, where he earned his opportunity to go to the University of Georgia in the House of Pain. I'm excited for him.
I like it, Terence. That's awesome. I knew you'd have something great on that. Hey, remind folks real quick before we let you go how they can get in touch with the Terence Edwards Wide Receiver Academy and the great work that you're doing. Bubble work is going on when it's not too cold anyway. Bubble work is going on, so remind folks how they can be a part of it.
Yes, bubble work is going on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6 to 7:30. So we have this session tonight with the great Ron Veal as the quarterback coach as well. So we and if you want to learn how to get your son as a quarterback or a receiver, reach out to Ron Veal on Twitter and reach out to Terence Edwards Wide Receiver Academy.
Terence, great stuff. Thanks for being here for our Marlowe's Tavern Insider Update. Really appreciate that and look forward to getting a chance to chat with you again very soon, too.
Thank you so much, BA.
Good stuff.
Let's take a look around the rest of the league. This is SEC Through.
I'm telling you right now, man, I love getting these guys time with their high schools because we all love high school football. At least a lot of us do, and the pride that exists about being a part of that. You get a chance to go back home, and it is really cool to see when a lot of these communities are deeply entrenched, and so you do see, hey, dad played here, now son's playing here, maybe granddad also played there as well. I just love that up at the state of Georgia. And I'm so proud that we have so many communities like that, like in Washington County, where the roots run so deep. And I'll tell you right now, Robert, we talk about Terence being a coach, obviously a lot. Robert's a very good coach. He did a very good job at Riverwood. And I don't know, just really, really cool to see. You see a lot of this with the program, UGA, where where a guy comes through the program, comes out on the other side, and now he's a coach contributing, and it's one of the things I like. I like the idea that there's a legacy in the program where players become coaches, because that's how you make the sport better. Is you take guys, and in Robert's case, listen, he's first round pick. He has obviously the horrible injury, and folks that were kind of around back then, kind of know how tragic that was. Took away a promising NFL career, and who knows how that how his future was changed because of that. Maybe he doesn't gravitate towards coaching, but we need guys like Robert Edwards and Terence Edwards in that coaching ranks. We need those guys populating the high school world with that. Training up guys for college or just training up guys for life, making boys into men. We need that. Boy, do we need that. And guys like that doing a great job, and I love to see it. Let's transition now, SEC through, or as we call it around here, cruising around the SEC, courtesy of our friends at Royal Caribbean. And I've got my own Royal Caribbean cruise vacation here coming up pretty soon. I told you earlier that my goal was try to be tan all winter. Now, I don't really feel like I'm quite doing that. I was pretty tan coming back from Miami in the Orange Bowl. Probably had the tan die down a little bit, but I got my own personal Royal Caribbean cruise here coming up pretty soon. You better believe I'm going to come back tan from that. I'm probably going to ditch the scarf when I come back from that, because it sort of feels like weird to be super tan also wearing the scarf. Plus, at a certain point, you got to get humble and hungry for the new season there as well. But the point is, you can get your own Royal Caribbean cruise for yourself there as well. 2022, a big year for all of that, including some big plans here with Dog Nation there too. So check them out, tcava.com. That's the website for the Cruise and Vacation Authority. They're going to tell you about, if you're watching this screen right there, you see Perfect Day CocoCay. You also see some of the beautiful ships in the fleet, just some of the most amazing things. And it's remarkable how much the Royal Caribbean cruise ship experience has changed over the years. The ships just keep getting bigger and keep getting nicer and more interesting, more things to do, including, like if you're on a ship like, say Harmony of the Seas, for instance, which goes out of Port Canaveral, which is just, short drive from where I am. It's very close to Orlando. They have the ship kind of divided off into different neighborhoods. You have like a Central Park, like a true Central Park type vibe on the ship. You have a Royal Promenade, which is, like being, kind of walking like a downtown type thing, but it's inside the cruise ship. You go to Perfect Day CocoCay. You see the private island right there in the Bahamas. There are just so many fun things to do on a Royal Caribbean cruise ship. So many fun ports to visit, so many great shows to see, the Aqua Theater, the Broadway style shows. It's the kind of thing you need to experience. Check them out, the Cruise and Vacation Authority. That's who we use to book our Royal Caribbean cruises here. Check them out, tcava.com, or give them a call, 770-952-8300. All right, let's go cruising around the SEC here today. Now, this is a little bit different flavor because a lot of this is pretty Georgia heavy for right now compared to what we typically do. One of the things we're kind of waiting on is we're waiting on resolution in the Brian Harston situation. So that's kind of a placeholder right now. We'll kind of figure all that kind of stuff out. And invite you to check out the piece that Connor Riley has at DawgNation.com. We talked about the Bill Connelly stuff off the top of the show, the ESPN analytics expert, kind of measuring that returning production for the upcoming year. One of the things that Connelly does remind you, though, is that while Georgia is not super high necessarily on the returning production situation, other programs aren't necessarily wildly better either. Think about the top national championship contenders. So Georgia's 96th overall in returning production. That's way down because of the defensive imbalance there. Georgia actually brings back a decent amount of its offense. But Bama's not wildly better. They are 65th. Watch out for Ohio State, though, 25th. Ohio State was not a playoff team last year, lost to Michigan. But they do bring back, decent amount of returning production. That's elite players performing at a high level coming back for this upcoming year. Quarterback, wide receiver, especially, also running back too. This is a really good Ohio State offense a year ago that expects to be the case this upcoming year. So, expect the Buckeyes to remain a part of that championship chase involving UGA and Alabama here for this upcoming season. Speaking of chasing championships, that's what the Los Angeles Rams are also hoping to do on Sunday, chase one down. And boy, how cool is this to see? This isn't Georgia putting this out on Twitter. This is the Rams putting this out on Twitter. The week of the Super Bowl, giving a shout out and some love to UGA. How about the three players on the active roster from UGA? Matthew Stafford, of course, the quarterback. Sony Michel back in the Super Bowl again, this time as a member of the LA Rams. And Leonard Floyd there also with the LA Rams. They call them Super Dogs. Obviously, Georgia's pretty quick to retweet this out, and they should. Just fun to see. And In the case of Stafford here in particular, this seems like it's kind of his moment, and you understand why. Waited a long time for this kind of NFL glory on a very bad Detroit Lions team. And there was a really good story to ESPN.com the other day about how so many folks who played with him in Detroit seem to be rooting for him. So many fans of the Lions seem to be rooting for him now in L.A. Sometimes we see this in pro sports where Detroit sort of feels like Stafford's their guy, even though he's now playing on another team. They're hoping he gets that Super Bowl success. And, for as cool as all of this is, from a Georgia standpoint, Georgia can clearly use this in recruiting and almost certainly will. It also is just kind of a cool thing for Stafford, too. I mean, I remember when he was a signee or a commit coming to Georgia, you already had guys like Mel Kiper and others saying he's going to be the number one overall pick in the NFL draft one day. That's a lot to live up to before you've even enrolled in college. And it kind of comes from sort of a ritzy part of Dallas or whatever, and there's just this it'd just be very easy for all of that to just kind of fizzle out, where when life comes that easy for you, sometimes you don't always quite have the edge that you need to face whatever adversity comes your way. But that does not seem to have been a problem for Matthew Stafford. That he has come through kind of this golden child life as seemingly pretty well adjusted and seemingly, pretty well grounded. That speaks, I think, well of his personality. I think it speaks well of his character, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here. That, as crazy as it sounds, sometimes having every advantage in life isn't always the easiest thing because of what it does to you. In the case of Stafford, he seems to be actually pretty good shape here, and it would seem to be a culmination of a pretty nice feel-good story if he does truly go out and win that thing on Sunday. A lot of Georgia fans will be rooting for Stafford to do just that, with no disrespect to Trey Hill there on the other side. Another Georgia-themed story here a little bit, as we're technically still cruising around the SEC. So where Football Scoop reported this, that Kurt Benedict, most recently a staffer at Duke, kind of a special teams ace, that's what he's sort of thought to be. You see that there from him, special teams analyst at UGA. This was first reported by our friends at Football Scoop, that is what he is doing. Of course, Kirk Benedict, I loved his work in the A-Team as a kid in the 80s, and then before that, reruns of Battlestar Galactica. Of course, I'm kidding you. That was Dirk Benedict. But nonetheless, Kirk Benedict is thought to be a little bit of a special teams ace here, and that, as in kind of an off-field support staff role, would seem to be the solution right now for what Georgia's going to do with its on-field coaching staff, which is a little more heavily geared towards dividing the special teams responsibilities up amongst the 10 on-field coaches. Some folks have wondered what this means for the future of Scott Cochran. I've never really gotten the impression that Cochran was ready to step back into an on-field role right now. That just didn't really seem like that was in the cards necessarily, at least based on what I've kind of been told there. But that doesn't certainly preclude Cochran from still being an important part of this organization in a similar support staff role that he has been in since he left the on-field role last season. And this is the support staff stuff, the analyst stuff is not like the hard cap that exists on 10 on-field coaches. There isn't the same kind of limitation related to your sports staff stuff. So in the case of Benedict, I don't think he gets in the way of anything that Cochran might have been doing for this organization, nor does he get in the way of anything else there as well. That this is one of the ways that the haves continue to be the haves. The rich get richer. This is how you do that. You have a big, fully filled out organization of support staff guys, analysts, quality control guys, whatever you want to call them, and bring in a guy like this who's got a lot of acumen related to special teams. Seems like that's a pretty good way to do all of that. And so for now, we'll make that cruising around the SEC, courtesy of Royal Caribbean with our SEC through, admittedly kind of a slightly UGA-themed version of that there today. Let me also turn our attention to recruiting here just for a moment. We'll do some kind of cool stuff related to all of that. So you'll remember the other day when Brian McClendon was first hired as Georgia wide receivers coach. Had a lot of folks responding to this, and one of the guys that had one of the more profound responses to it all was Brandon Ennis, a very highly ranked 2023 wide receiver, a guy that you'd love to see Georgia be involved with. And Ennis was certainly quite complimentary of Georgia's hiring of McClendon as its wide receivers coach. Let me show you Ennis on Twitter about this. He says, wait, and you remember this, we talked about it on the show at the time. He says, wait, what, Coach BMAC just went to a UGA? And he kind of gave you the mind-blown emoji, sort of showing you that he was pretty excited about that. Well, Raymond Cottrell, Georgia wide receiver commit, in noticing what McClendon had said, and kind of went to work trying to recruit him, said, yo, I know you like Brian McClendon. He says, let's both get coached by him, and me outside, you slot, even be reversed. I'll play slot, you can play outside. We can make it happen. He says, gang, let's do it. So Cottrell there kind of pushing Ennis to join him at UGA, and Brandon Ennis then comes back on Twitter, gives a little response back to all of that. And this is one of those things we always love to see. And I will say that, in this day and age where players, I would think, want to kind of increase whatever, name, image, likeness value they have, I think this is one of those things that can certainly help you do that. Like, there's nothing that Georgia fans love more than seeing recruits recruiting on behalf of UGA. It's one of the things that made guys like Richard LeCount popular over the years, probably Nolan Smith popular over the years. A lot of Georgia guys who've just been really Julian Humphrey for this most recent class. A lot of Georgia guys just really active, pushing other players to join them at UGA. Fans always love that kind of thing. So kind of fun to see Cottrell and Ennis going back and forth with that right there. Hey, another quick message I want to give you before we say goodbye to you today, that if you've been injured in a car accident, if that's something that you've dealt with, I want you to call the Wilson PC for this, because they're going to provide you signature service and signature results to every single one of their clients who may kind of find themselves in an unfortunate situation of being injured in a car wreck like that. That means you're going to have a dedicated and experienced team making sure that you receive the specialized treatment that you deserve for your injuries and how to get compensation for those injuries in a way that you deserve. So don't get treated like you're just another client of just another wreck case, just another attorney like this. Go to somebody who's going to give you that specialized treatment. Go to somebody who's going to treat you like you matter. That is what the Wilson PC will do for you. So let me give you a number to call. It's 855-247-WILSON. That's 855-247-WILSON. Or you can go to thewilsonpc.com. That's thewilsonpc.com. Get signature service, signature results. Get what you deserve with the Wilson PC if you've been injured in a car wreck. All right, couple of golden shoes as we say goodbye to you here today. Let me begin with this. One of the things I love is all the national championship paraphernalia we're seeing right now. Some of it's on your body, some of it's hanging on your walls, sometimes even hanging outside your house there as well, including our buddy Scott Harris, who shares that. How good does that national championship flag look showing off the home? And if you look back there in the back, you see a package that's been delivered. If Scott's like a lot of Georgia fans, not only does he have the UGA national championship flag, but that box that's at the doorstep, that's probably more UGA apparel there as well. So really good to see. In fact, I even see some more Georgia stuff back there in the corner there too. That is a well-decorated, well-appointed home. And the national championship flag there in the forefront is good as anything. So good stuff from Scott Harris will make you a golden shoe winner for today. Also, Daniel Hammock checks in with the top dogs. He says, I didn't know Santa was still making deliveries. That is great to see. Daniel, appreciate that. And mentioned earlier about Brian Harsin. This is really funny. On Twitter, somebody sent me this video. We'll give a golden shoe to Mike Q here. You've seen the meme before of the child swinging in the playset with the fire burning in the background. Mike Q shares this from Pregame Empire on Twitter, saying this is all representative of Auburn fans enjoying the basketball season while the football team is an absolute mess. And yeah, that's about what it looks like right there. So pretty funny stuff from Pregame Empire. And appreciate Mike Q sharing that. We'll make him a golden shoe winner today too. Also, Gator Hater Updater, 4,781 days since Florida's won a national championship, and a Gator Hater Countdown, 261 days from right now. Dogs back in Jacksonville getting another win over those lousy, stinking Gators. We will see all of you tomorrow right here on DawgNation Daily, presented by Merriweather and Tharp. We'll look forward to talking to you then. And on video. Time now for the R.S. Andrews Cool Down. R.S. Andrews, you can turn to them for your air conditioning, heating, plumbing, and electric needs. They show up on time, and they do the work that's promised for the price that's promised. That is what you can trust R.S. Andrews to do for you. All right, let's get some comments, and we'll kind of roll through them all today. I'm going to start with DawgNation.com comments here because we hadn't done that for the Cool Down in a while, so we'll do that. Tom says, any more insight on the new coaching hire? Other than what we talked about the other day with some early rumblings about Zach Etheridge, there's some other names that have been, kind of kicked around, but I don't know that anything has gotten too substantial on any of that. Senior Dog 54 says, only 3 SEC schools have produced Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. I didn't know this. He says Alabama, Tennessee, and Ole Miss. One more will be added on Sunday. So Tennessee is obviously Peyton Manning. Is Alabama, is that Jim Plunkett? Is that the Alabama quarter? No, it's Joe Namath. Excuse me. My bad. Joe Namath. is the Alabama quarterback who's won a Super Bowl. And Ole Miss has won one as well. Who is the Ole Miss quarterback that won a Super Bowl? Am I just blanking on this? Randy Hall says, any events coming up other than the cruise? I hope we can announce some stuff here pretty soon. A lot of this is still in the early pre-planning stage. Who is the Ole Miss? Oh, Eli Manning. Excuse me. He won twice. Boy, talk about slipping here a little bit. Eli Manning. Pardon me. Yes. Jesse Dellinger says Auburn is the great value of UGA. Also, Senior Dog reminds us Bart Starr there as well, and Kenny Stabler. Yeah, I said Jim Pluckett. I meant Kenny Stabler. And Bart Starr there as well, also an Alabama quarterback. Very good, Senior Dog. You're exactly right about that. And I completely blanked on Eli Manning as in embarrassing fashion there. In embarrassing fashion. Bill says I'm wearing Georgia Tech colors. Listen, this is as close as Georgia Tech will ever get to a national championship. I can promise you that. Plus, Tech changes its colors every year, so I'm not even quite sure they even have colors anymore. Let's see what else. Dennis Pilardi says, go Rams. Stafford deserves it. I think a lot of Georgia fans going to feel the same way. Don Medeiros in here saying that maybe he taught one of our other commenters at West Georgia. That's kind of cool. Let's go over to DawgNation Facebook for a moment as well. Probably won't go crazy along in the comments today. But I hope all of you are having a great day. Always fun to be able to chat with you, including on here at DawgNation.com. Gerald Harmon says that Joe Montana is the GOAT. I mean, I think for a long time that was true. I think I probably have to give that status to Brady now just for the longevity. But Montana, it's almost like enough time has passed from the Montana era that he's probably now underrated because people forget. So I think that if you're doing Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks, I think that Montana's definitely on it. If you're doing GOAT, in other words, you can only pick one, Brady's probably passed him up, right? Let's see what else. Jesse Dellinger says, what's my Super Bowl pick? So I guess I'm going to go Rams here just on the basis of the defensive front, the Aaron Donald, Von Miller, Leonard Floyd. I just don't see how Cincinnati blocks that. I just don't. And sometimes football is just kind of simple. And for me, that's what it kind of comes down to. So I'm going to go Rams here. Stephanie Osteen. She brings up a good point. I forgot about this. So, Michael, we were going to get Terence a new profile pic. Did we ever do anything about that? Okay, so he's going to get so Terence is going to get something to us. Okay, so he's going to get something to us. Yeah, he wants some national championship gear. Tennille Calvino, Brian Whitehead also mentioning SEC Country Live. So we made the announcement yesterday that we're taking a little bit of a hiatus on SEC Country Live. I love doing the show. I've got big plans for the show in the upcoming year. There's some cool new things I want to do with SEC Country, but for now there are some conflicts with some other projects I'm working on, so we're going to take a little bit of a hiatus on that, and I hate to do that. I don't like to jerk you around about any kind of product like that, but for now that is the thing we kind of have to do. And so Tennille's always a great commenter on there, and I appreciate that, and I can't wait to be back doing that again very soon. But for now, we are not doing that. So Tennille, I'll miss you there too, but I'm happy to see you here right now. Gerald Harmon also mentioning Eli Manning, 2-time Super Bowl winner. And, yeah, I mean, his performance in the big game was always very impressive, very impressive. And really, I mean, is the Giants upset with Eli of the first, the first win over the Patriots, the undefeated Patriots? That may be the most significant NFL game of my lifetime. I mean, I just remember what a big deal that was. Everybody was so plugged into the undefeated Patriots, and they're kind of a bad guy at the time. People I think were pretty comfortable rooting against them, and then the Giants pull the upset. That's such a significant game, maybe the most significant NFL game of my lifetime. Let's see what else. Philip Jordan Wells, also on the subject of the Terence Edwards picture. Yeah, I believe we're on the way to getting a new picture for Terence Edwards on that. Yeah, Hugh Nash, I guess, talking about the Chicago Bears there. Alec Ogletree with the Bears. Calvin Sanders says, can't wait for G-Day. Yeah, me too. It'll be here before you know it. That's always fun. Be here before you know it, and that is always a good thing. Let me go to YouTube here for a moment, see how folks are checking in over there. And on YouTube, Jay Shipes on No Sean Marino, a truly electric player for sure. Christopher Rules on the subject of the New York Giants wide receiver David Tyree, who catches the football on the other side of the defender's helmet. That's just it's just an amazing moment. It's an amazing moment. Paul Moon says it's still so insane to me that Brady's got 7 Super Bowl wins. The next highest is 4. Yeah, Terry Bradshaw and Joe Montana both have 4, right? And then Brady's got 7. That's amazing. That's amazing. Green Soldier says, is there any team you see stopping Georgia from getting to Atlanta? I think Georgia has a bigger shot than people think. Yeah, I mean, I think that, like we said earlier, that it would not surprise me at all. In fact, my prediction will be that when the over-under totals come out, and then it'll come out actually pretty soon, when those over-under totals come out, I think that Georgia's regular season win projected total is going to be 11.5. And so to bet the over, you're going to have to, get Georgia going 12-0. And so that's kind of what I see there. I mean, I think there's a chance that Georgia is a double-digit favorite in every regular season game. I think there's a strong possibility that's the case. So now, listen, that doesn't guarantee what happens after that. Once again, 2022 will be like a lot of previous seasons where it seems like the real season may start come December. But I definitely think that in the early chatter, I think that Georgia's a little bit undervalued. I do. I think they're a little undervalued. Football trivia. So Michael Carville has this. Name the 3 UGA players who won the Super Bowl MVP. So I know 2 of them. Hines Ward is one. I believe Jake Scott also won Super Bowl MVP. The third UGA Super Bowl MVP, was it Terrell Davis? Was that the 3? Did I get all 3? All right, good. I don't mean to take that away from other people because I honestly didn't know. Yeah, Ward did it. Davis did it, and Jake Scott did it there as well. And I believe that was the and then Jake Scott, obviously also famous for riding the motorcycle to the top of Stegeman Coliseum. That is true. And that was also, I believe, the 72 Dolphins undefeated team. Jake Scott, very interesting person. There have been some very, very compelling things written about Scott over the years. Very interesting stuff. So I got all 3. That's pretty good. And it sounds like a lot of you got those there as well. Also, Slim Pickin, and I think is it Chase Barbie is talking about this, about the idea that Brock Bowers could get to New York as a Heisman finalist. So I think one of the things that helps Bowers is that he does come into this year with the attention that you earned from having been really good a year ago. I mean, Bowers was clearly under the radar to a certain extent because he wasn't even a Mackey Award finalist. So pretty clearly he was under the radar a bit because of he missed out on his own tight end award. But by the end of the year, he's playing so well that more people kind of knew him. I mean, like one of the things that you kind of have sometimes going for you is that if you're the face of a championship contending team, you just kind of get a chance to be a part of that discussion. So it's not unheard of. We saw Aiden Hutchinson become a finalist this year. We obviously made our push for Jordan Davis as the unorthodox defensive guy. Hutchinson ended up getting that. Of course, in retrospect, that's a total joke because, he's a complete fabrication like a lot of these Big Ten guys are. But he did get that, that nod. So we're a little more open to unorthodox Heisman choice. We had a wide receiver win it a couple of years ago. That was unheard of prior to Devontae Smith doing that. So it's not impossible, I believe, for a tight end to get there, especially with the kinds of numbers that Bowers puts up, especially given the fact that he's almost not even really a true tight end anyway, given how prolific he really is. So it's not impossible. I don't think it's impossible at all. Now, it's not the safest bet either, but it's not impossible. Let's see what else. Slim Pickens said, did I hear that Joe Cox is the tight ends coach at Alabama? Yeah, I don't know that it ever became official. Maybe it did, but he was in line to be hired there. This is a guy that had worked with Mike Bobo, and, Bobo had, taken him with him from Colorado State to South Carolina. And so Joe Cox is a little bit of a up-and-comer in the coaching ranks a bit. And so, I believe he's tight ends coach at Alabama now. Let's see what else. Christopher Rule says Jamari Sire shut that Michigan man down all night long in the Orange Bowl. Yeah, he really did. And, by the way, if you look at this, let me see if I can show you. I got my Orange Bowl sweatshirt on today. This is my orange, wrong side. There you go. Orange Bowl sweatshirt on today. I told you I'm proud of that Orange Bowl win. That was a cool moment for UGA. And so I'm showing off the Orange Bowl sweatshirt here today as a way of celebrating that. Very happy about that. And it was a great day for Jamari Sire there. Let's see what else. By the way, good to see Slim Pickin here in the comment section. I feel like we saw him a while. I used to see him a lot. Hadn't seen him as much lately. So good to see him back in the comment section over here. Let's see what else. There's a very unpleasant conversation starting to take shape in the comment section, which I probably won't remark on. Chase Spitzer says, first Georgia game my dad took me to was Georgia-Kentucky with Joe Cox quarterback. He says we lost. The first game I took my son to was Georgia Tech in 2016. Georgia lost that game. It's never great when you first experience something like that. I always remember, Joe Cox's career at Georgia was what it was. Y'all remember that night, though, against Arkansas where he had like 1,000 yards passing? Just unbelievable. Like National Player of the Week type thing. It's like Georgia had a couple of these quarterbacks that just out of nowhere would have like the greatest game, like Grayson Lambert against South Carolina in 2015, Joe Cox against Arkansas in 2009. Like these games of their life type performance where they just put up huge numbers. Let's see what else. Chase Spitzer says, do you think we'll give Brock the JD to NYC treatment? Maybe we'll try to see if we can get a campaign going. Maybe we'll try to do that. Crow King 123 said be BB to NYC. I like that. Jonathan Barnes, I agree with this wholeheartedly. It'd be good to get Tate Ratledge back along the offensive line. I think if Ratledge, I think most would say that the Georgia offensive line last season was good, maybe not great. That had Ratledge been there, that could have been the recipe for a great offensive line. I think he'd clearly proven himself to be one of the 5 best guys here, and Georgia using that as one of the component pieces to maybe building a great offensive line for this upcoming season. That could be a big part of that. I think you're right about that. Let's see what else. Jim McLaughlin says Lambert looked great in that South Carolina game. Yeah, he basically ran Steve Spurrier into the retirement home. For sure. I can't do the worst quarterbacks, though, conversation. This is too good of a day, too happy of a day to do that. Now they're doing it on Facebook, too. All right, a couple comments, and then we're going to go. Philip Jordan Wells also mentioning Corey Phillips in the game against Kentucky. What do you have? That was at 2,000. Unbelievable stat line. So, kind of the one-hit wonder stat lines, what Phillips did against Kentucky was amazing. What Cox did against Arkansas in 2009, incredible. Lambert against South Carolina in 2015. There are a lot of these, staggering single-game performances, sometimes from, surprising sources. Calvin Sanders Jr. says that 2015 South Carolina game was the favorite game he attended. Yeah, I'm sure that was really fun. He says, I'm about to buy a title shirt for my younger brother. He went to Vandy undergrad and UK Law. This is going to be fun. Yeah, I'm sure that'll be a great thing. I'm sure a lot of folks will be getting that kind of championship gear. Oren Chile says, what about Quincy Carter? So, I really think that the Quincy Carter era should be kind of reconsidered a bit. I think that there were some fun moments in that Quincy Carter era. Maybe you can say, well, yeah, there were some heartbreaking, disappointing moments there too, where a lot of times you sort of hope Georgia would be better than they turned out to be. But like a game that's worth going back and rewatching, if you can find it, is on the road at LSU in 1998. That's a really cool game. Like LSU was ranked top 10 at the time. They didn't really finish the season that way, but going on the road, winning at LSU in 1998, that's a pretty big, fun game to go back and rewatch if you get a chance to do that. And obviously Quincy was a part of that. Barry Watkins says that G-Day, the day before Easter, is going to hurt with recruits. Maybe it does. I guess that's just never really. Listen, I love Easter. I never really realized the day before Easter was a thing. Like I know about Good Friday, but I didn't really know that like people had plans the day before Easter. I'm not trying to be dense. Until recent years, I never really heard this, but people don't like it. They do not like G-Day, the day before Easter. At least historically, they have not. Bill Sanders said his first home game at Georgia was 1977. That's really cool. What else? Barry Watkins says it's the out-of-state recruits. That could be true. You could be right about that. Yeah, because they don't want to be gone coming back home on Easter Sunday. That could be right. I don't know. Maybe we need to do like a sunrise service for the recruits. Early Sunday morning in Athens. Maybe that can be one of those things. Calvin Sanders says worst game for me was either 2016 Vandy or 2019 Carolina. One of the worst for me was, I mentioned the fun LSU win on the road in 1998. Following game, Tennessee in Athens. First time game day I'd ever been in Athens. It was the first time I'd ever spent $100 on a ticket. I remember how crazy that seemed to me. $100. I'm spending $100 on a ticket. We had one student ticket that was $20, which that seemed crazy too. It was like one of those things where like I was going to buy it for like, actually, because back then you didn't have to have, IDs and things like that. So I was going to buy it for like the actual face value of like $2. But then the girl I was buying it from came back and said, no, I want $20 for it. It's like $20. So bought that one for $20. Had to buy another ticket for $100. This was like just a regular general, like a regular non-student ticket for $100. So expensive. That's so expensive at the time. Georgia played awful that day. Tennessee fans were, celebrating all over the stadium. That was not a good day to be in Sanford Stadium. Not a good day. Joel Moody said worst loss for me was the national championship loss to Bama in Atlanta. Yeah, that was not good. I was also this is also Quincy Carter era too. I was in Columbia in would have been 2000. That was the year that Georgia lost in Columbia. Quincy did not have a great day that day. Boy, that was a tough road trip. Matt Rugavina says, I splurged on tickets my first home game, $100. Yeah, like when I first spent now, tickets are regularly several $100s. But back then, $100 in a ticket was a big deal. Jesse Dellinger, the Alabama Blackout, was not a good day either. Oh yeah, Barry Watkins. We'll talk more about this tomorrow. But I guess the policy change related to at Auburn related to vacations. Brian Harsin just getting back from vacation. So yeah, there's a lot of funny, wild things going on there at Auburn right now. Bill Kelly says home games when I was in school were just $1. That's great. All right. Couple other things, and then we're going to go. Back at DawgNation.com, Brad Hotton says that 2000 South Carolina game, we saw the goalpost walk right by our tailgate. Yeah, that was a weird thing because, South Carolina had been winless in 2019, and so the first game of the season, they played, I think it was San Jose State. I may have the team wrong, but it's something like that. I think it was San Jose State. They won that game. South Carolina fans tore down the goalposts for beating San Jose State because they hadn't won a game the previous year. Then the week after that, they beat Georgia. They tore down the goalpost again. Like I'm guessing there are not a lot of instances of a team tearing down goalposts 2 weeks in a row. But unfortunately, back in 2000, that is what South Carolina did. At least that's what my memory was. David A. Thomas. That is not nice, but funny. Patrick Ritchie says, taking my 2-year-old to Athens for G-Day for the first time. That's really cool. What a great experience that is. I think that G-Day is a great game to take young kids to. Like my daughter is a little bit easier to take to games now. She's 6, but when she was younger, G-Day was like a pretty easy time to take the kids. Now, I think my wife will tell you that I'm always working, so she always kind of like the single mom. It's like people always probably wonder, why is this mom taking 2 kids to these games? Because that's what they're always sitting in stands like that. It's my wife and my 2 kids, and I'm nowhere to be found because I'm working. But she said, like, when they were younger, it was very hard to take 2 very young kids to the game without an extra pair of adult hands to help out. But it's getting a little easier now. Hasheem Spikes, the terrible loss was to Lane Kiffin in Knoxville. So that game was also 2009, right? The Kiffin game was. Now, Georgia lost in Knoxville in 2007, but that was still to Philip Fulmer. That was an awful game, too. I don't know how we got on such a negative subject, but, boy, that Tennessee game in 2007 was the worst. Like, for a Georgia team to be that good, in 2007, they were really good. I'm not quite so sure they weren't the best team in the country that year. I think they may have been. Played awful in the home loss to South Carolina, and terrible. They played terrible on the road at Tennessee. Just 2 awful, awful games for a team that was really very good. Let's see what else. Yeah, G. Gray Spam Boy says, back in the day, I took my 2-year-old to a game. Worst experience ever. Kid wanted to leave 5 minutes in the first. Yeah, I mean, it's a real risk. I mean, it's why, like, you got to take them to, like, at least I believe, one of those games where if it is a total disaster and you just have to leave, that you're okay with doing it. Like, if you're a Bama fan, you don't want to take a 2-year-old to Bama LSU or Iron Bowl or something like that. You want to take it to one of those games where, hey, if we got to go here, it's no harm, no foul, because there's a very good chance that first game for a very young kid is not going to go well. Not going to go well. Oh, wow. Slim Pickens was at the Liberty Bowl, lost to UCF. That may be about as bad as it gets right there. That was not a good time. I almost have blocked that out of my memory. If you're doing worse losses, that's a pretty bad one. Now, at least you're in Memphis and there's some fun things to do, but it's probably cold for the game. But at least you can go to Gus's Fried Chicken or, one of those deals. C-Dub. Our C9 Dub, 2007 was the year that Georgia blew out Hawaii in the Sugar Bowl. Jay Scheib says, my first UGA game was a late 80s loss to LSU, said I've hated those cats ever since. I think I kind of remember that game. It was 87 in Athens. Heartbreaker. 2 of my most, because like I've told y'all before, I'm not quite old enough to have really remembered the Herschel era, national championship era. I kind of came of age a little after that. Man, some tough home losses. LSU in 87, Auburn 88. Boy, those were some tough ones. Tough losses. I'm sorry. Auburn would have been 87. Auburn would have been 87. LSU would have been 88. I think that's what it was. Tough, hard losses back then. Tough, hard losses. Frank Patterson says, has Bama ever produced a running back to compete for the Olympics? Herschel Walker was in the Olympic bobsledding team. You are right about that. All right, we got to go. Thanks for being here. R.S. Andrews Cooldown. Check them out online, rsandrews.com. Air conditioning, heating, plumbing, electric needs. They'll show up on time. They'll do the work that's promised at the price that's promised. You can trust R.S. Andrews to do all of that for you. Water heater. If it goes out, in any case, R.S. Andrews can replace it for you the same day. Also, check out the Atlanta Journal-Constitution online, ajc.com. NBA trade deadline. Keep an eye on the Atlanta Hawks relationship to that. Also, D-Led interviews Arthur Blank there at the Super Bowl. And Mr. Blank says some things about Calvin Ridley, his future in Atlanta. If you're a Bama fan, if you're a Falcons fan, that's pretty interesting. All kinds of other good stuff there as well. Valentine's Day events around the Atlanta area. You can check that out. And 15 cool things to do this weekend, too. AJC.com, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Make sure you check that out there. And, of course, don't forget our Top Dogs book. We've been talking about this. A lot of you have been kind enough to share those with me when they come in the mail for you, so you still got time to get yours. Link at the page at DawgNation.com. Or you can check out the other. Can we show that real quick, the Top Dogs link? Do we have that? The other stuff there for you. 800-888-4741. 800-888-4741 or triumphbooks.com/Georgia wins. That's triumphbooks.com/Georgia wins. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. We'll finish off the week on a high note. DawgNation Daily, presented by Merriweather and Tharp. 9:45 first and 15, 10 a.m. on video after that. We'll talk to you tomorrow, everybody.